Hello my people, I hope you're well. Love and respect. So today, the time has come where I'm going to be sowing some corn, or maize as it's known by Native Americans traditionally. And if you watched any of our videos last year, then you'll know that I trialled doing the Three Sisters planting, which is where you'd grow beans, squash and corn all together as companion planting, and each one has a benefit to the other plant. The corn provides the pole or the structure for the beans to climb, and the beans fix nitrogen into the soil, which benefit the corn, and the squash run and meander around, creating a ground cover, suppressing weeds and helping to retain moisture in the soil. So moving on from that, last year we grew 3 different varieties of corn as a trial, and we did quite a generic sweet corn variety, which ended up being very small stems, which didn't really lend itself that well to the Three Sisters. Also we grew blue hopi, which is known as like a flint corn, and that type of corn go very hard, which is these ones here, beautiful black corn. And these are actually used to grind up to make flour, and they make an absolutely beautiful porridge. And obviously you can make bread with them as well, cornbread, used all throughout the Americas by the native people. This particular variety though are used by the Hopi Indians traditionally. This was their variety, and they actually have a much hotter climate than we have here. And I believe, I would have to double check this, but they're from kind of quite an arid area around Arizona way. Don't take that for golden though. So this is quite a long season variety in the UK, so you have to really start these off in modules first if they're going to mature in time before we start to get the cold, damp weather in October kind of time. So going to experiment this year with a very interesting variety you may or may not heard of, called glass gem corn. Sometimes it's known as rainbow corn. And this variety, if I just bring a handful over to you, you may just be able to see there that they are literally absolutely beautiful, all the different colours of the rainbow basically. And these have a really interesting and beautiful story actually, that a man of Native American heritage actually wanted to kind of gather up and reclaim a lot of the lost varieties that were kind of on the edge of being lost. So he collected a lot of them together and he started growing them, and I guess he let quite a few varieties cross-pollinate each other, which was the result of the glass gem. So they have really interesting characteristics in the fact that they can be used as a popcorn, and they can also be used as more of like a flint corn to let go really hard and grind them up to use as flour. And you can also use them in the same way you'd use a sweet corn, by harvesting them before they're ripe while they're still green. And they wouldn't be as sweet as a sweet corn, but you can still use them in that way. So the trial this year is going to be seeing if we can plant these, because they may have a slightly shorter season, which long term we might be able to replace the blue hopi with, because it's not really ideal to be going through the effort of starting in modules and all the watering and care that has to go into those each year when you can plant direct. Obviously you get a lot of losses by planting direct, can be due to adverse weather conditions. just animals and birds eating the seed as well as the seed rotting if the temperatures aren't hot enough. So in order to do that, you need to have enough stock to be able to plant direct. So a young farmer I met a couple of years ago who grows in the UK said they plant 3 seed for each plant they expect to actually have to reach maturity. So this year, because I've had to purchase these seeds, I'm gonna do the vast majority of them in modules, but we are gonna do a couple of handfuls direct as well to see whether they will grow and reach maturity without having to go through the effort of starting them in modules first. And gonna also do the same thing with the Blue Hopi as well. And the third variety we're growing is really interesting actually, because you may be aware if you grow or if you purchase seeds every year, it's becoming very difficult to find seeds that aren't F1 varieties. And there's kind of quite a lot of controversy that goes into how F1s are produced. There's a really good documentary actually, which I'll put in the link below this video, which you may find very interesting if you're wondering what they're about, or if you do just buy them every year. Not only that you can't collect your own seed and have reliable results in terms of the harvest and yield each year, that's obviously a massive downside, but there are a lot of others too. So this is a new variety which has come out in the last few years from Real Seeds actually, which are a really good company, and they're an open pollinated corn that have been bred in Europe, and basically they're a very sweet variety of sweet corn, and they're not an F1, which is very hard to find now. So these should be a variety that, if we're careful not having cross-contamination or cross-pollination, between the varieties, we can collect our seed each year. And these as well have when I've looked online, seem to have a harvest time of around about 90 days. And some varieties can go all the way up to, I believe, about 130. So again, we're going to do the same with these, each variety. Last year, we also grew a specific variety called strawberry popcorn, which is a heritage variety, beautiful, completely ruby red, that were just for popcorn. That was their sole use. They're very tiny little seeds on them. But because the glass gem is kind of multi-purpose, hoping to be able to replace it with these. And who knows, if the long-term, the Blue Hopi just need a longer season than we can direct, then we may see if we can go to just the glass gem and the sweet corn moving forward. Because ultimately, doing it on quite a large scale, I don't really want to be going through the hassle of having to start everything off in modules and then constantly watering them and then taking the time to individually plant each one out. So I think all the traditional methods are much better, and that's something that we're really interested in as well. So I have these nice long root trainer trays here, which I've already pre-filled with a mix of sieved compost, and I sieve that because we get this very economically, and it's basically municipal waste compost, so it's a lot of made up mainly of hedge cuttings, bushes, leaves, that kind of thing, general stuff that landscape gardeners take away. So it does have a lot of large size stuff in it. So I sieve that out, and then I've added about 50% vermiculite in there as well to help retain moisture, because these big long trays do tend to really dry out even if you water them a lot. So here is some of our Blue Hopi corn that we saved last year purposely for our seed for this season. And we selected some of the nice long ears of corn, and there's even one here with really beautiful purple leaves here, which we thought would be nice to keep some of the genetics of that and use them for seed as well, so we can hopefully still have some of that trait moving forward. So we hung these in the shed after harvesting last year when they had matured on the stems, and basically now it's just a case of shucking them or removing the seed or the individual pieces of corn so we can sow them. And you can buy kind of mechanical things, something you can clamp to a bench and turn it, and it shucks all of this off, which we may look into in other years, but it's quite a nice process, just going around like this with your hand, twisting, and they come off fairly easily once they're dry, as you can see. And it's been important as well, actually, to not just save 1 or 2 ears of corn, because that way you're not going to have much genetic diversity moving forward. So in an ideal world, I might have, say, 50 of these saved, and just kind of remove all of the seed like this, mix it all up in a bag, and just select from that, you know, however many we need to plant. That way you're not just getting the genetics from 1 or 2 plants. So you can see it doesn't actually take many to have a decent amount of seed here. And of course you could do exactly the same process with normal sweet corn if you want to save your own seed. Just you would leave a few plants to go to maturity when the stems and the stalks have dried out. You'll quite often find at either end of an ear of corn that at the very tips here, see, these aren't particularly developed very well, and at the very base as well. So you might want to find you want to leave either end and just select the biggest, healthiest seed throughout the centre here, which is going to give you your best results as well. I've got my seeds and a stick, and I'm going to work my way through this tray now. Although you already saw me fill this earlier, it's very often, even though if you push by hand you don't feel any voids, the stick will often disappear down like that, and you actually realise there are some quite big air gaps in there which we want to get out. So just work my way through first, pushing any of those out, because that's not going to be good in terms of our watering or for our roots later on in the process. And what we're finding with these large root trainer trays is it's actually easier to water by sitting them onto trays rather than watering from the top, because sometimes you can think you've watered so well and then you lift a cell out, and by pushing underneath and lifting the plant out, and it's still completely bone dry for pretty much the whole bottom half of it. So I think that's the way to go. Okay, so I can then finish that off just by poking my finger in, just to make sure there's no mega voids down there, like that. And then going to come through with our blue Hopi seed in this case, and just simply drop one in each of the holes. And you want to push it down to maybe about the first or second joint of your finger. And once I've finished this process, I'll cover the seeds up, give them a good water, put them in the greenhouse, and hopefully you'll catch up with us in a few weeks' time when I sow some of the direct seed, and we'll see how that goes. So I hope you may have found this a bit interesting and just all about learning, and it's going to take many years really to learn what it's taken hundreds of years and generations for native people around the world to learn. It's all exciting, so we'll leave it at that. piece of plants and much care and respect.